Hello, everyone. Thank you so very much for joining us for this session with QMU. We will be going live with Mark and Lingwin. They will be taking this session for us today. Without waiting for the delay, I would love to invite Mark on the screen, and I would ask him to share the presentation with us and take us to the session. Mark, over to you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mark Robertson, and I am the Programme Leader for International Management and Leadership. And I also look after the postgraduate qualifications within Queen Margaret Business School. What I'm going to be doing this morning is basically running through a little bit about Queen Margaret, a little bit around the programme structure for international management and leadership and also international marketing, talk to you a little bit about options. One of the things that's slightly different about our postgraduate award is that we give you options for your research project. Talk a little bit about why you might want to pick Queen Margaret as your university. And last but not least, we have a session on answering any questions between myself and my colleague, Lingwin, who can help advise regarding anything to do with admissions, or anything to do with visas, or any other questions like that. And I'll be happy to answer any academic questions. So if you have any questions on the presentation as we're going through, please just wait till the end, and then I'll be happy to answer those questions at the end of today's presentation. So first of all, a little bit around Queen Margaret University. Queen Margaret was founded in 1875. We are Scotland's smallest university. We have around about 5,800 students on campus, and that makes us a relatively small institution by Scottish standards. Although we were founded in 1875, we're also one of the newer universities in Scotland as well. And we focus primarily around business and around health are our two main areas, along with education. We pride ourselves on having quite small classes, and those classes tend to be quite interactive and discursive. And we have a broad range of modules that we teach, which are primarily aimed at educating you, but also ensuring that you get good quality jobs at the end of this process. As for many students, the requirement for a job is a key focus for them. There is quite a high degree of academic engagement from us and my colleagues, because we believe that our primary role is to help you reach your learning outcomes and attain whatever it is you set out to attain. So we are quite heavily involved with you. We get to know you incredibly well in your time at Queen Margaret, and we know when to advise and guide, when to push. But you'll see us around a lot, and that's quite different from many other institutions in the UK. We also have a slightly different focus as a university, because we strongly believe that whilst your academic development is important, so too is your practical development. We want you to leave Queen Margaret with a broad range of skills that you can then use in the marketplace. And therefore that has an impact on how we assess, but also on the sorts of activities we ask you to do as part of your studies while you're at Queen Margaret. So think about it from a kind of dual perspective. Yes, we develop you academically, but also we try as much as we can to develop you practically. And that's not the same for many other universities. So because we have slightly smaller classes, we do focus on you as an individual learner. I taught at another university where my class sizes were around about 300. That's not the approach we take at Queen Margaret. We have much smaller classes than that, and therefore we get to know you well and get to know you and your strengths and areas where you might need to make some developments or some improvements. And we do believe that that makes a massive difference in terms of your experience of Queen Margaret, but also for you as a learner. You should be using your time at Queen Margaret to think about how you want to develop yourself and use the team and use the qualification and the course to do that. And it's very helpful if you as a prospective learner can work out what it is you want to do in your future life, and also how you want to improve and develop at your time at Queen Margaret, because the team is there very much to help you do that. And as I mentioned before, the team is very accessible. You'll see us around campus all the time. It's a very small and friendly institution as well. So we use our first names, we're not sir. We have a very open approach to meeting with students, and I think that makes a big difference for you as prospective learners. But the downside to that is that Queen Margaret is not a place to come and hide. You're not going to be an anonymous face in the crowd and someone who gets lost. And if your own personal approach to study is that you would rather not engage with academic staff, not be pushed, not think about your own development as part of your studies here, then we're probably not the right institution for you. There are other universities who will be happy to work with you on that basis. At Queen Margaret, if you come to us, then we will push you to do your absolute best and make sure that you leave with the best qualification, the best award that you possibly can. So because of that, we do have expectations of our students and of our prospective students as well. We like our students to be confident and self-reliant. We like them to be outgoing. We like them to have the skills and abilities to be able to engage in a meaningful way in the discussions in class, because we do believe that by being confident and self-reliant, that also means that you're likely to become creative problem solvers. One of the key things that employers look for is people with imagination and ability, people who can process information, and people who can actually solve real problems that the businesses are facing. And therefore, as part of our program, we give you lots of opportunities to do exactly that. We want you to be a positive contributor. We want you to be a positive contributor in class, but also when you leave Queen Margaret, we want you to be a positive contributor to society. The world faces many challenges, and we think that our graduates, when they leave us, should be making a difference and should be helping the world in everything that they do, irrespective of what job role that might be. We want you to use information to problem solve, and therefore we want you to be able to manage information, manage data, process that data, and also become very results oriented. We want you to look at data as being a way to solve problems. And because of that, we will throw quite a lot of different ways in which you can look at data, different sources of data to allow you to do that. And again, our employers that we work with on an ongoing basis tell us that they want evidential decision making. They want their graduates, the people they employ, to understand the importance of information and data and how that leads to effective decision making. So that's built in to our programs. We want you to be professional. We want you to be ethical. Ethical means that we want you to have a moral core. We want you to make appropriate moral decisions and ethical decisions when you leave Queen Margaret. And again, we build that into our programs. And last but not least, Queen Margaret is not the end of your academic journey. It's probably just the beginning of it. We want you to become lifelong learners. We want you to recognize that for many of you, you may have careers that are 40, 50 years long. And therefore you need to recognize that to do that, you're going to have to continuously learn and adapt to the circumstances that are around you. So again, we build in the kind of principles of lifelong learning into our programs. So what does the International Management and Leadership Programme look like? Well, first of all, you can see that there are 3 semesters for our programs. There's the autumn semester, spring semester, and summer semester. And you will be working over all 3 of those. But let me go through that in some detail. If you're joining us in September, you'll be joining us in the autumn semester. And therefore, you'll be studying 3 modules. And then you'll also start your development on your capstone. And I'll talk a little bit more about capstones in a second. International marketing, contemporary challenges, international management, and finance and accounting are all good introductory modules. Marketing is also about the basics of marketing, but also how do we market in an international context. Contemporary challenges is around the environment in which business and industry currently sits and the challenges that it faces. Some of those can be moral and ethical challenges, some of those can be economic challenges. And what's interesting about that module is that those challenges vary from year to year. So we'll go through the most up-to-date challenges that industry currently face. And last but not least in that section is finance and accounting. The heart of any business is money. It's the oil that makes the gears of business work. And if that money dries up, then your gears grind to a halt and your business fails. And therefore, how you go around managing money is much more important than being able to extrapolate information from a spreadsheet. It's around an understanding about how you influence the money within a business, where you put that money, where you spend that money, where you save that money, and the balance that all managers need to make in order to make that flow of money through a business the most effective and efficient thing that it can. So let's move on to spring semester and talk a little bit about the modules there. Strategy and leadership is a very interesting module because one of the things that all contemporary businesses are currently facing is change. And one of the things that we deal with in that module is around the options for strategic change and the different approaches that businesses can take, my apologies, but also how do managers then lead those changes within organizations? And that's why those two modules are linked together. Human capital is the most expensive aspect of any business, and therefore managers of all ranks need to understand how best to utilize the human capital within an organization. And human resources is around how we get the best out of our workforces and to ensure that the money that we're spending there, which is considerable, is giving us the returns that we need from a commercial perspective. And then you have an option, and the optional modules are changing every year. So when you matriculate, we'll give you a list of the most up-to-date optional modules. However, if you are taking the dissertation as your capstone, then you are required to do research methods, which is an online program. Then in summer, you are also going to be doing your capstone project, and I'll talk a bit more about capstones in a second. If you're interested in international marketing, then this is the program structure for international marketing. Now, I'm not the program leader for this module, but I can talk a little bit around some of those modules that are there. International marketing is also accredited by the Digital Marketing Institute because we have a number of modules now which are particularly relevant for digital marketing. And again, if that's an area of your interest, then having that accreditation as part of your CV is not a bad thing to have. So international marketing I've talked about before. Markets innovation and the international consumer is placing how markets behave and how marketing reacts to those international markets. And it looks at marketing from a consumer perspective as well, to look at what consumers expect from a product, what consumers expect from innovation, what consumers expect across the world, and also how marketing can then help support that innovation and development. You then have an option, and that option again is unique for that particular year. Then in the spring semester, we're looking at how marketing impacts upon society. What are the ethical and moral issues around marketing? Marketing has the ability to influence us. Is that always a good thing? Are there any risks associated with that influence? How do we as professionals balance our marketing activities off to ensure that we don't step over that line between influence and exploitation? So it's quite an interesting, discursive module, which has quite a lot of ethical involvement and ethical input into that one. Digital communications is around contemporary marketing. We tend to use digital communication these days as our preferred method of marketing. Although if you've been following the news recently, you'll see that that in itself has some concerns. Twitter has recently been sold. Marketeers are removing their marketing from Twitter because of concerns about the ethics around Twitter and the new owner. So again, there are some ethical considerations for us as industries in terms of where we choose to use our digital budgets, how we choose to use them, and also how do we go around constructing digital campaigns? What are the tricks that we use to help use digital communication in a very effective and cost-effective way? And again, options for the international marketing program. And along the bottom, you'll see in both autumn and spring, there is that capstone development work that we're doing. Those capstone sessions are 10 3-hour lectures across a broad range of different subjects, all of which are supporting your development to become a researcher so that you can complete your capstone in the summer semester. So let me talk a little bit about the capstone. One of the things that's different about Queen Margaret is that we offer you an option at this stage. Most universities will ask you to do a dissertation, and we have a dissertation as an option, which I'll talk about in a second. But we also believe that for some of you, you might want to develop more practical skills. And perhaps you are nascent entrepreneurs and wish to set up your own business, or perhaps you want to work with a business on a live problem and ask them to work with you to solve that problem. So we have these three options: business incubation, business consultancy, and dissertation. And you take one of those options as your research project. And again, through the capstone development work that we do with you, we guide you and help support you to make whatever choice is right for your career. Things that we ask you to think about when you are making that choice, however, is that the first thing you should ask yourself is, how does my choice support my career ambition? And at induction, you'll hear me say exactly the same thing. All the choices that you make at Queen Margaret should be tactical, and tactical around what it is that you want to do for your career. And therefore, if you want to work with business and if you want to have an interest in consultancy, then obviously doing the consultancy module is the right choice for you. If you have an interest in education and want to go and teach, then perhaps dissertation is the right one for you. If you have an interest in setting up your own business, then obviously the incubation module is the right one for you. But think about it more broadly. In each assessment, you are going to be given an opportunity to research particular aspects. Again, make that research tactical choice and think about how it is that that tactical choice can support what it is you want to do when you leave. Think too about what skills you want to get from us while you're at Queen Margaret. Managing a project is a complex set of skills, and whether it's a dissertation, whether it's incubation or consultancy, all three of those things are projects. So you'll be learning project management skills. If you add a client into that mix, then you're also adding client management skills. Is that something that you think you would benefit from? Because clients are demanding and challenging and complex, and therefore that adds a degree on to your capstone module that you might benefit from. Think about your own personal areas of interest. What is it that you want to explore? And again, going back to my first point, how does that choice support your career choice? Last but not second last, rather, what's your personality type? The people that pick consultancy and incubation tend to be quite outgoing, quite dynamic. They enjoy a challenge. They find challenge rewarding, and they are not people who are easily put off. If that's your personality type, then perhaps incubation and consultancy is the right choice for you. And then my last point is, here in the UK, and I think probably most places in the world these days, employers do competency-based interviews. That is, tell us about a time when you have done X, Y, or Z. If you pick your capstone module, then of course, the examples that you use in your interview can come from the capstone module. Tell me about a time when you've had complex challenges and how did you solve them? Well, you can use the capstone for that. And what our students tell us is that they feel incredibly well prepared for their first interviews because they have got so many skills that they've developed through their time at Queen Margaret, and so a high degree of confidence when they're sitting in that chair trying to get their first jobs. So I think I've just gone too far. Yeah. So let me talk a little bit about the business incubation program. Business incubation is aimed at those who are going to be entrepreneurs. And we do that in partnership with an organization here at Queen Margaret called BIZ, and also with a government organization called Business Gateway. And essentially what this does is it takes you through a development program which allows you to create a business from an idea that you yourself have got. The outcome from this is that you will have a business plan and a highly developed and researched concept for a business. We take you through something called the lean entrepreneurship cycle. And the lean entrepreneurship cycle is basically an iterative process of product development. You have an idea, you take that out to research, you test that idea, you come back, you adjust your product, you go back out to market, you test the new product, you see how that reacts, you can go back into development, you develop that product again, and then you take it back out for a third time. And each of those times that you go out into industry to test your product, you are making improvements to that product, so that at the end of that, you have got a research concept that potentially you could take to market. The next option that you've got is called business consultancy and practice. And those are for people who wish to explore a live business problem. We work with a number of different businesses, and our students secure businesses to work with, and that can be wide and varied. We don't always have to have those businesses based in the UK. They can be based anywhere in the world. And it has to be in an area of your interest. It should be something that inspires you. It should be something that connects to your career goals. What we think it does for you as learners is it develops great communication skills. You have the ability to communicate with quite senior people within organizations. You have the ability to work with those people. You have the ability to listen and process information and problem solve. And all of those are related to communication. You'll also be developing very good project management skills, because some of those projects are really very, very complex. Remember, we're talking about master's level here. So some of the examples that I'm about to give you have been very challenging and quite complex management problems. You'll also be developing good research skills. And remember, it's one of the key things that employers are looking for. You have to write in a particular way, because you're writing for a client, and that client may have particular expectations as to how that is written. And last but not least, you'll also be pitching. At the end of that, many clients want you to go back in and give a presentation to either the board, if they're a small company, or the management team that you've been working with on what your solution is about. So again, it develops very good skills and gives people a huge amount of confidence for when they leave Queen Margaret. And last but not least, it allows you to develop business experience in a very specialist area. So again, going back to my discussion earlier around making choices, if you have already got an idea of a particular area that you want to work in, my advice is do BCIP and try to do a project in that area, because you'll be spending the best part of 8 months just doing research on that specialist area. And trust me, if you've been working on that for 8 months and you're going for the job interview, you are likely to know a huge amount of information, which helps you get that job. Recent business consultancy and practice projects are up on the screen. And these have been not the most amazing ones. These have just been really interesting ones. One of our projects, the one at the top there, was looking at how the company currently used RDF technology to track packaging. And the proposal from that was they redesigned all their packaging based around a new way of presenting scannable information, so that when that information was scanned, it was shared back with the company. In this case, it was a biscuit company, so that the company itself could track where all the packages were, and also how long those packages were on shelves in supermarkets. And the company itself, after that research was completed, the company rolled out the students project across the company. Last year, we had a student who was working with an airline, and the airline was launching a new budget version, and they wanted her to work on in-flight communication standards for the new airline. So she spent 8 months writing those communication standards. The standards were adopted by the airline, and they're now being run out across the airline. We had a student who was working with a very traditional publisher here in the UK, because they had a massive backlog, a back catalogue rather, but they had no idea what to do with that catalogue. So the student went along and worked out a new system for them of how they could digitize their back catalogue, which I understand is currently happening. The next one was a fascinating one. This was somebody who was working with a bank, because the bank realized that the way they processed data was not as strong as perhaps they wanted it to be. So what this student did with a team within the bank was create a new algorithm and the algorithm extrapolated data in a much, much faster way, which allowed the finance house to then make decisions more quickly. And then the last one, which was a business incubation program, was somebody who wanted to create a new online digital music magazine. And what he did was he took his basic idea and developed that, took it through the lean cycle, worked out how he was going to fund it, worked out the model that he wanted to use for making that commercial, and he launched that last year. The thing I want you to think about from all of these projects is the scale. These are not small projects. These are not things that ultimately don't matter. These are projects that do have real, genuine impacts on businesses. And that's one of the reasons I think that the BCIP is a really good option for many students, not all, but for many students, because you have the opportunity to make real substantive change within business. And if you want to have a career within business, of course, that's what you're going to be doing. That's what you should be aspiring to. So let me talk a little bit about dissertation. Dissertation is a very, very good option for those who want to research a particular problem and really get into that problem. And very often people who have got an idea about working in academia, like my job, for example, might choose to do dissertation because they want to undertake primary research and they want to undertake secondary research and they want to write that up within the confines of a dissertation. Dissertations allow you to research almost any subject related to your core degree. So if you're doing international management and leadership, it must be something to do with management and leadership. If you're looking at marketing, it should be related to a marketing issue. But it's down to you to determine what that issue might look like. Dissertation allows you the opportunity to research that and get into that and write about that in substantive detail. And again, it's a very good option for you to pick that if you've got that career in mind. If you're interested in doing a PhD or you want to continue your academic studies into a DPhil, a PhD, or an MRes, then again, our guidance would probably be that you pick dissertation. And again, it's down to you to determine which of those three options that you want to do. So I think this is one of my last slides. And I think it's just a little bit around what it is I think is important for you to be thinking about and why you might want to think about QMU. The first thing to bear in mind is that all teaching and assessment is at master's level. And in Scotland, that means SCQF, or in the European framework, EQF, level 7, level 11 in Scotland. It's also assessed and taught in English. And therefore, your level of English should be at a level which allows you to access master's education very, very readily. I'm one of the lecturers. So this has been a presentation. Everything that I have said should be very accessible to you, and you should be readily understanding what it is I'm saying. And therefore, be thoughtful about your level of English and be thoughtful about that high standard that we expect at master's level. Because of that, our IELTS is 6.5. And if you don't have that, then there is the option for a language test. The language tests are done with myself for IMAL and with my colleague Richard Bent for marketing. And again, there's a standard test that we do on people, and we do fail people simply because their language is not at the appropriate level. Be aware too that attendance in classes is mandatory, and therefore we do expect you to be there. Because our classes are relatively small, we do know when you're not. So again, it's down to you to use that time with us as effectively as you can. We also expect students to engage with us in class. Experiential discursive learning is one of the fundamental principles of master's education. And therefore, again, we expect you to be able to be contributors and positive contributors to class discussions. University is like any other place. It has rules, and therefore we are bound by those rules, and all rules are upheld, which you might expect me to say. The reason I mention it here is because sometimes people expect us to bend and flex rules, and that just simply doesn't happen. And the last thing I want to say is that we do expect our students to work hard for the degrees that we offer. We are very proud of the fact that Queen Margaret students are very highly sought after in the employment market. And one of the reasons that they're sought after is because of our standard of education and our standard of graduate. And therefore, we never deviate from that. If you get a degree at Queen Margaret, it's because you've worked incredibly hard. And we expect that of all of our students, irrespective of where they come from in the world. So why come to Queen Margaret? The quality of what we offer is excellent. I think it's partly because of the academic team that I'm proud to work with, but also because of the very contemporary nature of the subjects that we teach you. Our curriculum is very up to date. It's about the contemporary business environment. Our class sizes means that we can focus on you, and that's not true of everywhere. We have a very open pedagogy, which is about you at the center of our learning experience, and therefore expect us to work with you and push you, advise you, educate you, and develop you, because that's part of the offer that we make. We get to know you very, very well, and that does make a massive difference for you as a potential learner at Queen Margaret. And you are not an unknown. You're not a face in a crowd. We want you to engage with us. We want you to engage with us in a very positive way to make sure that should you come to Queen Margaret, your time with us is well spent and you leave with the qualification and the experience that you are hoping for. So I'd just like to say thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now so we can go back to the main room. I can do that. Stop share. Go back into the main room. So thank you very much. And if anybody has any questions, I'll be very happy to answer any questions now.
Thank you so very much, Mark, for the insightful session. Yes, we do have a couple of questions in the chat box, and I would love to read it out for you and Lingwin. The first question that we have in the chat is, I have a 1-year gap after my 12th. Can I apply for foundation in arts?
What, sorry?
So the first question we have is, I have a 1-year gap after my 12th. Can I apply for the foundation course in art?
I don't know anything about foundation courses. I don't know whether, Lingo, do we even offer foundation courses?
Some universities offer foundation courses. So if the students have, first of all, if the students got 1-year cap, that should be okay. If the student wants to apply to our foundation or pre-masters, we don't offer that, but there are many private sectors offers it. We recognize it, okay? What we do is we recognize a lot of foundation pre-master course, and then we accept students come to us by using students' foundation and pre-master qualification and their home qualifications to combine this together. Also, we use the students' experience they've gained during the year they've not been studied. For example, they might be working. So if that's the case, the student needs to put that on their personal statement and CV, so we can review that as well. We use that information to make a fair judgment. So do not let that gap yet put you off.
Thank you, Lingen. The next question we have is there any scope for the full scholarship option available for high achieving students?
I'll pick that one as well, Mark.
Scholarship option, that's one for you, Lingen.
Yeah, so we don't offer full scholarship. Students have to have their financial resource before they apply. So we have certain scholarship depending on the students from. For example, we have soul-tied scholarship for postgraduate course. For someone for Mark's course, we can, the students are applying to soul-tied scholarship, which is about £8,000. We also have Queen Margaret scholarship, which is £3,000, which is offered by the university and applied to our both undergraduate and postgraduate courses. So the student can apply to that absolutely fine, no problem. But the answer is we don't offer full scholarship, and students have to have the financial resource in order to study. The scholarship will help you to go a bit further to achieve your dream, but it's not going to be enough if you solely rely on that and in order to study. So I hope that answers your question there.
Thank you. The next question we have is, how helpful and accessible are the instructors?
I'll answer that one perhaps. I hope very. One of the things that I like about working at Queen Margaret is the relationships that we have and we build with our student body. We take time with you guys. So when I'm teaching, for example, I know perfectly well that I'm teaching for a certain amount of time, but I also make time at the end of that lecture because I'm also aware that students want to talk to me about things or ask me questions, and that's kind of built in. And I don't think that I'm unique in that. I think all of my colleagues take a similar approach. We also are available for conversations, of course, out of the classroom as well. And again, it's part of our job to do that, to make sure that students are understanding and following the programme, or that we're available to answer any questions. And the most important thing is that there should be little barrier between us as academic staff and you as learners. My personal view is that the greater the barrier, the more problematic that barrier can become, because it should be about us helping to guide and advise our students as much as possible. And therefore, I'd want us to be thought of as a team as very approachable and friendly and student focused and student oriented, because again, it's our job to kind of help you get you through your program. Obviously, we don't write it for you, we don't do the assessments for you, but it is our job to try and make sure that you do as well as you possibly can, and therefore we build that into our time.
Thank you. The next question we have is, how is the Masters in Business program in the university? What are the major highlights of the university's postgraduate programs?
For me, I think the major highlight for most students is around their capstone choice. That's why I spent so much time looking at that today. I think that if you talk to our students and they're doing their consultancy, their incubation, or their dissertation, particularly the consultancy students will talk about the difference that it's making to them as learners, and the difference it's making to them as people. I think they find that process challenging. I won't underestimate how challenging that is, but also incredibly rewarding. And I think if my colleague Richard was here, I can hear him saying this: the people who do consultancy are the ones who change most. And I think that's down to the individual students who put the work in there. But also, I think incubation is for those who are entrepreneurially minded, who want to go off and leave Queen Margaret having set up their own business or started to set up their own business. And dissertation is an excellent choice, again, if you really want to get into the research around a particular subject. But it is so different depending on individual students. And going back to the previous question about, about the staff are there to help guide you as well and have conversations with you to make a good choice. That's part of our role. So I think of all the things that we do, the capstone is probably the thing that makes us different from other institutions, but also perhaps our philosophy as a university about being very student focused, I think as well is one of the things that makes us slightly different from other places. And that's not me that says that, it's the students themselves that say those things.
Thank you so much, Mark, for answering this. The next question we have is, how do you select applicants? What aspect do you look for an application?
I can talk about it in general terms, and Lingo might want to come in and talk about it in kind of admissions terms. We are looking for people who have got an interest in business and marketing, obviously. People who have got the ability to express that in their written statement quite clearly about what it is they want to do. We really like students who've got a clear idea and a clear focus on what it is they want to do with their careers. That makes a huge difference for us as educators, because it means it helps us tailor our program towards what it is they want to achieve. We look for outgoing people. We look for people who are very happy to engage. My favorite students are the ones who disagree with me and argue with me. They're my favorite students because I like students with opinions. Just because I say something, it doesn't make it true. It just means it's my opinion. And I like students that recognize that, particularly at master's level, because it's important that you have views and those views are researched and that you bring those views. And if I say something you don't agree, argue with me, because that's what this is about. It's not about sitting there quietly going, well, sir said it and therefore it must be true. No, it's not. I said it because it's my view. You have the absolute right to disagree with me and do so publicly, should you wish to. So those are who I'm looking for, my ideal list of students. Do you want to talk a bit about the admissions process?
Of course, yeah, that's very important. So we are also looking for students to meet our academic and English requirement. By academic, I mean you have to have an undergraduate degree from your home country. English means you have to meet the IELTS requirement, like Mark just mentioned earlier in the presentation. And these are the two things that are very essential. We are also looking for, during the application process, we're also looking for a personal statement, a CV with your work experience, if you have any, put it in there. We're also looking for students. We're looking for students with the ability to complete the course and thrive afterwards and find this course beneficial. And finally, the students need to be able to support themselves throughout the whole journey to study. So you have to have the financial resource in order to study and complete the course. So these are things we're looking for. I hope that makes sense to you.
Can I just add one thing as well? If anybody here, for example, doesn't have a classified or unclassified degree, but you do have substantive work experience at a managerial level, then we would probably encourage you to apply. Simply because if you have got good experience at managerial level, then that allows us to consider that as part of the application process. And I would look at that as program leader and make a determination about that. So if, for example, you're sitting with someone like an HND or equivalent and haven't quite got a degree, but have been working in industry for years, and that is at managerial level, then again, we would encourage you to apply, because we can take that into account and consider that as part of the application process.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Lingvin, for answering this question. That's all the questions that we have in the chat box. I would request, Mark, if you have any closing statement for the students.
I think the only thing I would say is I recognize that obviously you guys have got choice in terms of where you want to go. Think very carefully about what it is Queen Margaret offers, and think about whether or not the thing that I've talked about today is the right sort of approach for you. If you want to come to a university where you are being focused on, where you are being developed, where you are being pushed to do your absolute best, then probably Queen Margaret is a good place for you to come. If you're the sort of student who doesn't enjoy that, who wants to sit in the back of a classroom and never be bothered, then my feeling here is it's probably not the right place for you, because that's not how we do things. And therefore, just think a little bit about who you are as a learner and then make a choice. I think that Queen Margaret offers excellent postgraduate education. And I think that if you come to us, then we can help you achieve what it is you want to achieve. But you have to have a very clear idea about what that is. And then we can help make that happen.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Lingvin, do you have anything for the students?
Yeah, sure. I have talked to a few students who just graduated from us recently. They felt they had a great time here. They felt supported. They've learned a lot as well. They felt the extra support they received during the study makes all the differences, because some of the friends basically just got lost in a bigger uni. So their study experience really got them where they are today. So they had a great time here. And then I think that's quite good feedback from the students. So and if you're looking for somewhere to help you to make sure you have a good future, then and certainly consider study with us. And then I think that's a good option for you. And what we'll do is we can obviously share our email address in the chat box. And then if you want to get in touch with us for further questions, you're very welcome. And that's not a problem. So I'm going to type my email address here, and then obviously SIUK staff will share that with everybody. And then you're very welcome to get in touch with us if you have any question in terms of applying or get stuck halfway through the application, etc. So yeah, there we go. Put an email address just there for you.
Thank you, Lingvin. We'll share this with the students.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for today's session. I hope we answered all your questions. And in case if you have anything, please feel free to contact SIUK, and we'd love to give you free consultations. Thank you so much, Lingvin. Thank you so much, Mark, for giving us your time.
Thanks, everybody.
It was a great session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Speak to you soon.